Hi everyone, my name is Izumi, and I am Japanese. What is your impression of Japan? Sushi, kabuki, and Mount Fuji are probably the most famous. If you wish to know more about Japan, or if you wish to travel there someday, this video will surely help you. For this video gives you an overview of Japanese history in chronological order. Furthermore, this video is unique in that its explanations are based on the general understanding of Japanese people about Japanese history. For I created the content of this video by reconstructing such understanding. By referring to Japanese history textbooks used in Japanese high schools. Are you curious about how the Japanese understand their own history? Even if you already know a lot about Japan, you probably do not know this general understanding of the Japanese. Thus, if you are a beginner or even an intermediate of Japanese history, this video will not only help you understand the general framework of Japanese history, but also help you discover something new. In any case, my greatest wish is that you enjoy this video. In this video, we will show you images related to Japanese paintings and statues etc. from 200, 500, or even more than 1,000 years ago. In order not to disturb you, I will end the display of subtitles here. Then, let's get started. Japan is an island country located in Far East Asia. Beyond the Western Ocean lies the east coast of Eurasian continent, where China and Korea are located. Beyond the Southern Ocean lies the continent of Australia. To the east is the Pacific Ocean, and beyond that is the continents of the Americas. Thus, today Japan is surrounded by oceans on all sides. However, there was a time when Japan was not an island. Until 10,000 BC, there was a time when Japan was connected to the Eurasian continent by land. During that time, humans migrated from the continent to the area of present-day Japan. Humans were hunter-gatherers using stone tools. However, the environment changed around 10,000 BC, and Japan became a completely island. Japan entered the Jomon period, characterized by the use of earthenware and bow and arrow. People continued their hunter-gatherer lifestyle and formed settlements. The Sanai Maruyama site in present-day Aomori Prefecture dates from this period. Around the 8th century BC, some people from China and Korea came to Japan and brought with them their technology and culture. For example, they brought with them wet rice cultivation technology. Rice can be stored for a long time, allowing people to accumulate wealth. As a result, they formed a large community and even a small country. This situation is recorded in Chinese history books of the time. For example, the existence of a queen, Himiko, who led 30 small states, was recorded. Gradually, powerful clans had formed a state near present-day Nara Prefecture and established the Yamato government, which interacted with countries of the Korean peninsula. Chinese characters were introduced to Japan by foreigners and were used to establish the Japanese political system. In the middle of the 6th century, Buddhism was officially introduced to Japan. Around this time, under the authority of the emperor, it was Shotoku Taishi, that is, Prince Shotoku, who took control of the country and developed a governmental system. Prince Shotoku would become a famous historical figure that would be referenced more than 1,000 years later. He decided to send envoys to China to learn about its institutions and technology. After him, Emperor Tenji destroyed a rival powerful family and assumed real power. He began to introduce a Chinese political system. At his death, he bestowed the family name of Fujiwara on his chief vassal, Kamatari. This was the beginning of the Fujiwara family, which would gradually take the lead role on the front stage of history. In the late 7th century, a coup d'état took place in a struggle for the succession of the emperor. The victor ascended the throne as Temu Tenno, that is, Emperor Temu. Under him, the imperial family assumed real power. At this time, the name Tenno, that is, emperor, was now officially established. The name of the country of Japan was also officially adopted. In 710, the emperor moved the capital to Heijo-kyo in present-day Nara Prefecture, marking the beginning of the Nara period. Heijo-kyo capital was modeled after the capital of China. The government proceeded to compile historical books, and completed Nihon Shoki, that is, Chronicles of Japan. It was the first official history book in Japan. The actual political power shifted from the emperor to those in charge of political affairs. The Fujiwara family and its opponents vied for real power. Political disputes between the two sides and a smallpox epidemic caused great social turmoil. In this situation, the emperor promoted Buddhism in an effort to protect the country through the power of Buddhism. For example, the Todaiji Temple and the Great Buddha in Nara were built in this period. In 794, the emperor moved the capital to Heian-kyo in present-day Kyoto. This marked the beginning of the Heian period, which would last about 400 years. Kyoto would remain the capital of Japan for more than 1,000 years. The construction of Heian-kyo was very costly. Furthermore, since the emperor's rule at that time did not fully extend to northeast region of Japan, he proceeded with projects to control the region, which also required great expense. These projects caused opposition and were halted because they placed too heavy a burden on the farmers. The Fujiwara family gradually came to power by crushing rivals and through the policy of outer relatives. What is the policy of outer relatives? In the custom of the Japanese aristocracy at that time, when a married couple had a child, the child was raised in the wife's family. Hence, children were easily influenced by their mother's family. In this custom, the head of the Fujiwara family married their daughters to the emperors and raised their children in their own homes. In other words, the head of the Fujiwara family became the maternal grandfather of the next emperor and raised the next emperor from babyhood. If the child acceded to the throne at an early age, the grandfather Fujiwara took over as regent. When the young emperor came of age, the grandfather Fujiwara assumed real power as his political assistant. The peak of this regency politics, in which such powerful aristocrats used the authority of the emperor to seize real power, was from the 10th to the middle of the 11th century. One of the key figures was Fujiwara no Michinaga. When the Fujiwara family was expanding its power, warriors and samurai initially appeared as military officers in the service of the imperial court. They gradually formed new organizations in rural provinces. In terms of religion, Buddhism developed. In particular, Saicho and Kakai, who studied Buddhism in China, played an important role. Buddhism came to have a great influence not only on the political elites but also on the people. After them, Jodo Pure Land Buddhism, which advocated rebirth in the Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha, emerged and became popular. Regarding culture, Japan was greatly influenced by China for long. However, with the abolition of the Japanese envoys to China, Chinese influence waned. In the 10th century, Japanese culture thus developed its own unique coloring. This is known as Kokufu culture, and it flourished mainly among the nobility. For example, the kana syllabary was created and popularized as a uniquely Japanese writing system. In literature using kana characters, women writers played an active role. Murasaki Shikibu's The Tale of Genji is a representative example. From the late 11th century, the emperor took back real power from the Fujiwara family. The economic base of the Fujiwara family was centered on their private fiefs called manors. The emperor destroyed this economic base by issuing the manor order, thereby increasing his own income. Upon regaining real power, the emperor ruled in a different manner than before. That is, the emperor retired and transferred the title of emperor to his own descendants, while continuing to hold real power as guardian of this successor. It was Shirakawa Tenno, that is, Emperor Shirakawa, who started this politics in earnest. The retired emperor exercised extensive power, but powerful temples served as countervailing forces. Furthermore, the present emperor and the retired emperor came into conflict. It erupted into an armed conflict due to a dispute over the succession of the imperial family. Significantly, the warrior class emerged that took part in these battles. Of particular importance were the Taira and Minamoto families. Among the Taira family, Taira no Kiyomori finally subdued the retired emperor and seized real power. Here the first military government is said to have been born. Soon, however, the imperial family issued a decree against the Taira family. Kiyomori died of illness in the process. The Minamoto family followed the decree of defeat and destroyed the Taira family in a series of battles. However, the Minamoto family did not return real power to the retired emperor. but established the Kamakura shogunate in the Kanto region, which was its own stronghold. Some interpret this as the first military government. In any case, the first military or samurai government was established in the late 12th century. The period from the end of the 12th century to the first half of the 14th century is called the Kamakura period, during which the Kamakura shogunate continued to hold real power. Minamoto no Yoritomo established the Kamakura shogunate and became shogun, that is, the head of this samurai government. However, he soon died. His wife's family, the Hojo family, took over the real power. At that time, the retired emperor was still ruling in Kyoto and was looking for an opportunity to overthrow the shogunate. The shogunate and the retired emperor finally came to blows. The shogunate was overwhelmingly victorious, gaining vast territories on the retired emperor's side and weakening the power of the retired emperor and the nobles. The shogunate developed its governmental system. For example, it established the first fundamental law of the samurai class. In the samurai government, the shogun and the samurai had a relationship of gratitude and devotion. In other words, the shogun granted the warriors a favor, such as the granting of a fiefdom, in exchange for the warriors' devotion to fight for him in times of war. A fundamental blow to this samurai government was dealt by a foreign power. The Mongol Empire expanded its power to Europe in the 13th century. This empire also attacked Japan. The Kamakura shogunate won this defensive war thanks to the valiant efforts of its warriors and heavy storms on the Sea of Japan. However, the shogunate could not gain any new territory from the Mongol Empire, nor did it receive any reparations. Thus, the shogun was unable to grant gratitude for their devotion. As a result, the rule of the shogunate was shaken as the warriors were economically impoverished by the cost of war. The emperor saw this exhaustion of the shogunate as an opportunity and sought to overthrow the shogunate with a renewed vigor. In this vein, Ashikaga Tokaji and other members of the warrior class sided with the emperor and destroyed the Kamakura shogunate in the first half of the 14th century. After the fall of the shogunate, the emperor began to conduct politics himself. However, the emperor favored court nobles and temples, and the samurai who had achieved the defeat of the shogunate became dissatisfied. Ashikaga Tokaji, in order to establish a new samurai government, set up another person as emperor and occupied Kyoto. Thus, two emperors came to coexist. Under these circumstances, Tokaji established the Muromachi shogunate in Kyoto and the Muromachi period began. The Muromachi period lasted from the first half of the 14th century to the late 16th century. The Muromachi shogunate was a new warrior government, and the emperors could not oppose the shogunate because they were divided as described above. The peak of the Muromachi shogunate was during the period of Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, the third shogun. Yoshimitsu brought together the two divided courts into one. Moreover, he was not only at the head of the warrior class as shogun, but also at the head of the court nobility when he became Grand Minister of State. Also, as King of Japan, he promoted trade with China. After his death, however, real power shifted from the Ashikaga shogun to his chief vassals. The shogunate lost its centripetal power. In such a situation, the struggle for succession of the shoguns and conflicts among chief vassals combined to produce the Onin War in Kyoto, which devastated this capital. The shogunate no longer had power as the central government, and the emperor likewise had no real authority. The existing order, both central and local, was upset and overthrown. The period from the Onin War to the unification of Japan at the end of the 16th century is called the Sengoku period. This period overlaps with the Muromachi period in many respects. The culture of the Muromachi period was a fusion of samurai and aristocratic culture, and the influence of Zen Buddhism was evident. During the reign of Yoshimitsu, the peak of the Muromachi shogunate, culture also developed. For example, the Kinkakuji Pavilion was built in Kyoto. The later Ashikaga shogun built the Ginkakuji Pavilion in Kyoto. Much of what is known as traditional Japanese culture was born during this period. The Sengoku period or the Warring States period was a situation of rivalry between warring lords. Each region formed an autonomous dominion and was ruled by its own warlord. In some of these dominions, vassals overthrew their own warlords and took over the dominion. In addition, warlords fought each other to expand their power. One turning point in this situation was the arrival of the Portuguese in Japan. Portugal had entered the Age of Discovery in the first half of the 15th century. After reaching India and China, the Portuguese arrived in Japan, bringing with them the latest Western guns in the middle of the 16th century. This military revolution had a great impact on the Warring States period in Japan. The person who made great strides in utilizing these guns was Oda Nobunaga. After conquering the surrounding areas, Nobunaga took advantage of the Ashikaga shogun, who had lost his real power, to enter Kyoto. However, when the shogun became hostile to Nobunaga, Nobunaga expelled him from Kyoto. Thus, the Muromachi shogunate collapsed. Nobunaga defeated the warlord, who was famous for their powerful cavalry, with the effective use of guns. Nobunaga thus proceeded with the project of unifying Japan, but was forced to commit suicide due to betrayal by his vassals. Among Nobunaga's vassals, it was Toyotomi Hideyoshi who won the struggle for succession. Hideyoshi resumed the project of unification, conquering various regions and achieving unification in 1590. After unifying Japan, Hideyoshi further began to realize his ambition to become the monarch of East Asia. As a stepping stone to conquer China, he conducted a war of conquest in Korea. This war ended with the retreat of the Japanese forces due to Hideyoshi's death from illness. However, the war left Korea with heavy losses. As Hideyoshi proceeded to unify Japan, he issued various orders and established a governmental system. For example, Hideyoshi took away weapons from the peasants to prevent rebellion, and he attempted to clearly divide and fix the status of peasants and warriors. He also ensured his own financial base by conducting land survey to ensure the collection of annual tribute from the peasants, and by placing gold mines and silver mines under his direct control. These mechanisms were inherited by the next rulers. The latter half of the 16th century was the period of the first encounter between Europe and Japan. The Christian Church arrived in Japan for the first time and developed greatly by the mid-17th century, so this period is sometimes referred to as the Christian century. The exchange between Europe and Japan during this period has many interesting topics in politics, religion, culture, and many other aspects. For example, relatives of the warlords who converted to Christianity were sent as envoys to Spain and Rome in the 1580s, where they were welcomed in various parts of Europe, causing a kind of boom in Europe and returning to Japan with European artifacts. These interesting topics will be introduced in another videos. This video ends here. Please watch the sequel video, which will cover the period from the beginning of the 17th century to the end. The link is provided in the overview section. If you like this video, please give it a high rating and subscribe to my channel.